what was very interesting to me was that, you know, I love epic, stories with this fantasy with epic battles, with,
Yeah,
things like Game of Thrones, like
yeah,
Narnia, and then,
yeah,
you know what I mean. And
yep.
usually they're entrenched into some of the folklores, whether it's
Hmm.
from Norse, whether it's, Irish or,
Hmm.
Germanic. There are like, or from the Far East, Middle East, African. There isn't a lot of those from African folklores. Of course,
No, and there's so much you could do. There's the
that's what
dosa. You could
that
do like,
that's what I really, really, really loved about this. Things like folklores about shape-shifting, about, just generally about the entire governance system, because a lot of people don't think that such a thing existed in those times in Africa, because you know about all this because
yeah,
you're an expert on Ethiopian history. So
I'm not
yeah,
that. Oh, no, no, I'm
I
not
mean, you
that.
wrote a book on it, so and
Yes,
then
but
and the
I,
citizens of that said country loved it. So I
yeah,
think that is a validation.
well,
So if you could just first tell me how you came up with the title, Sabashaya,
uh,
and then just really the whole concept. I think this is something I would love to be turned into a movie at some point in my lifetime. So yeah, tell me about it.
well, from your mouth to God's ears, you're the second person to say that. So yes, that would be that would be ideal. Um, the title comes from the fact that the original title of the book was going to be Habesha. But as somebody pointed out to me, they said, yes, but people are going to think you're misspelling Habesha because it's with a Y, when in fact it was supposed to be a gimmick. And then I went, shit, okay, I got to do something else. And the person, my friend, suggested, well, why don't you make it Sabesha? So then it's like it sort of recalls Queen of Sheba and also recalls Sabesha. So that's where it came from. That title had to encompass the realm. The idea, in terms of the rest of the book, was yeah, I love epic stuff like that too. I read Narnia when I was an adult. I didn't read as a kid. I've never read Game of Thrones. I watched the show, and this is to me sort of the anti Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones is an incredibly nihilistic series. Basically, it says, "Hey, you live in the Middle Ages. Life is horrible. You're gonna die, and you can die suddenly from disease. You can die suddenly from, Oh, and by the way, if you won that duel, a dragon's gonna come down and burn you alive." And the thing is, I don't care for that too much. Long before that, I was reading Michael Moorcock's Elric of Melniboné, if that's how you properly pronounce it. I was reading those type of epic fantasy sword and sorcery books, and of course, I love them. But the trouble is, you get older, and finally, as you mature as a writer, good versus evil doesn't cut it. If you learn about colonialism, if you learn about empires, then it's like, okay, there's way more going on. So to me, what would have been fascinating is, okay, Dawit, have you finished the novel in terms of, are you done? I put you on the spot. Did you finish the novel?
Just a little. I have still a little bit left.
Okay.
So
All right. So there's still a couple
and,
of
and
surprises at
anyway,
the end.
whether I finish it or not, you're not supposed to spoil it for
Give it
other
away. No, I'm
people.
not going to do it. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to spoil it. But it's not a spoiler to say Dalwood, who is the central hero, is groomed to be, instead of doing the thing, and I get tired of this because you see it in bookstores on the back blurbs of books, like, so and so is the chosen one. Tonight is going to lead the empire, blah, blah. Yeah, well, if you're the chosen one, where the hell is the suspense in that? Wouldn't it be more interesting if he had a kid and he's the orphan and his life is crap and it's going to stay crap, but circumstances give him the opportunity. And this kid, instead of learning magic, he tries to learn magic, but magic, is not for him. He learns medical studies. And now you have there's a scene in the book for which I'm very proud, and I won't give it away. But the thing is, his mentor says, in the midst of battle, you're going to say to yourself, "I caused this. I'm responsible for this." And when you actually read the scene, it's not what you expect. But the
That's
thing,
that's one thing that I loved about it as well, though. Like, I don't want to stop you.
yeah,
Continue with
no,
with with the profession, and but that also, just like, having some of our folklores being incorporated in there, it just made me feel like, oh, we have our own version of this. I know other communities, other society, nations that have their folklores incorporated in these epic movies and stories on best-selling books. When you see those things that of from folklores from back home being incorporated in a book that reflects your own history that and stories, that is really, that I loved it. And the fact that
everything that happens, I don't think is giving away because people would have to know, but everything that happens to the character, his name is virtually the same. I'm not going to pronounce it properly, I apologize, but Mikhail Sol Salo, I'm not
yeah,
sure how to pronounce it, Mikhail
yeah, yeah.
Salo, everything that he does, the real Mikhail Saul did in real life. He really did, kill two emperors. He really did do this thing where he went, okay, here's a jug of water, here's a loaf of bread, here's a bar of gold. Okay, you touch it, you're going to hang. He really was this despot kind of guy. Mentuab, she really existed. She was a real person. And the thing is, she was an Oromo sort of princess turned queen, dowager. She had to have some real, character, hardness about her to survive. A lot of what she does in the novel is either inspired by or drawn directly from what she actually did. There are deviations, of course, because I want to do my own thing. But there are people in there that there are little touches where you won't even know unless you really, really know Ethiopian history and go, oh, you ripped that off. Okay, you took that from here. Which, yeah, why wouldn't I? Because you have this just panorama of history, which is absolutely amazing. And when I was working on some of this, I went, I cannot believe they did this. Like, how did they get away with this? How did they do that? So I was very inspired by Ethiopian history. I wanted to give back by doing this book, and I also wanted to refute. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation being put out about Ethiopian history, which I hate with a passion. And I went, okay, if you just were an academic, you could do a paper and it would sink like to the bottom of the well because people are quoting pieces from them online, but they're not reading the entire papers. What would be a more effective weapon? So I wrote this novel so that people like read Prevail, and I was never prepared for the popularity of the book. I wrote it thinking it would sell to African Americans. I didn't imagine an Ethiopian diaspora audience. I wasn't aware of it at that time. Certainly, I spoke to some Ethiopians, but the thing is, I thought, oh, they would like walk out to me and go, whoa, oh my God, this book, this book. And I'm going, oh, you like this book. So I was hoping for that with Sabeshya, that people could go, yeah, this is ours. Yeah, we're like, I want people to hopefully have that same kind of reaction. And when Thaddeus Magazine did its review, I felt vindicated because it went, okay, he calls it a fantasy novel, but it reads more like historical fiction. I went, yes, okay. We did it. We got it right.
Yeah,
If it's
exactly.
fiction.
And this is also very, for example, for the young people, sometimes they're more into reading fantasy
Yeah.
books, but a lot of the fantasy books somehow are really, I mean, there are complete fiction works out of, some author's imaginary, vision and imagination. But there are a lot of the cases where this, very popular books that have association with this, especially folklore, history, etc. And I think for also for the young people in the diaspora who really haven't gotten into their countries, their roots, history yet, is, I think,
Mm-hmm.
a very easy way of kind of going into easing into your history. It's not like history in its conventional term, but
No.
it gives you an idea of how things were. like how things were discussed, how the governance system, how people resist, how people work together, uh, and also just like, the attire, etc., the kind, the arms that you used at the time. I already am imagining it, as a motion picture. It would be really awesome. We should work
Go
towards
spread
that.
that word. Go spread that word.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think.
in actual fact, I won't say what the climax is, but that actually happened. There really was. Well, hopefully you're at that point. But how the story resolves itself, except for the epilogue aspect, that is the final confrontation is pretty close to what really happened in Ethiopian history, minus all the magical stuff. But the thing is, it actually did play out that way. And what happened to the villain actually did happen to the villain. The hero, of course, is my own imaginings. But the thing is, what happened with the guy who became the emperor, that actually happened to him, short of what later happens. But the immediate aftermath is exactly what happened in Ethiopian history. So I
Yes,
didn't
I
have to
think
bother
that's
much.
why it would be really, really like this is also, I'm saying this for parents, because like if you have teenagers who are interested in this kind of fantasy books, this is having your own brand of, you would say like Narnia. I
Yeah,
think another one would be, yeah, there are also um, obviously. Okay, Lord of the Rings is completely fantasy, but it comes from also a little bit of from folklores of, the Gaelic, about elves, and there is
yeah.
some kind of incorporation of, it's in a similar way. Some of the magic discussed, etc., is something we've heard before back home. So I think it would be interesting if I want to just give that push to the youth in in the diaspora. So, how do people get
when
this book? I got it from
well,
Amazon.
yeah, that's the one place they can get it. For some reason, it's what's interesting is it is popping up on some independent booksellers. So you can occasionally, but it's better off trying to get it from Amazon directly and do that. I've seen it pop up at certain outlets, but they're sort of scattered. One thing I should add though, so go to Amazon, go to Amazon.ca, go to Amazon whatever in Europe, and you can order it there. Well, I wanted to quickly add something that I think is important is no, unlike today, there is no, just like there was historically, there is no ethnicity that is a villain in the story. It's not like, oh, this race of like elves or trolls or whatever is a stand in for some ethnicity. There is no ethnicity that is a villain in this narrative. And I did that very deliberately because the thing is, the whole point of the book is this is how ethnic politics gets warped and used to take advantage of people. And I'm very clear in terms of, well, here's this guy and he's of this group, but he's on the right side. And here's another guy and he's from the right side. And they have conversations about this throughout the book in terms of it's pointed out, well, yeah, that's not a problem. There are conversations about culture in terms of, well, what are you entitled to? What are you not? What's bad in terms of culture? Where does it go too far? That's very deliberate. So I never thought of this book as something for teens, but yeah, I could see it resonating with teenagers. I mean, it can cross a line from adults to teens, sure. And it certainly could be a movie. It could be a movie.